So in this segment again, we continue as I try to show you how to calculate the standard deviation using the second method for grouped data. Remember, what you're dealing with here is simply grouped data. So therefore, they have told us to say the table shows the time in minutes taken by 80 learners to complete a task in a science experiment. Right, so that's the time in minutes. So those that took between 0 and 2, 5, 2 and 4, 15, 4 and 6, 25, 6 to 8, 26 to 10 were 10, 10 to 12 were 5. So they have given you the class intervals for the time. Those are the class intervals. And therefore, so that's the class interval that they have given you. So if you want, you can say class time, in this case in the first column. Then in the first column you are going to get what we are calling as being the mid values in this case. Then the next one we can say the frequency, and in the next one it will be the product, the frequency multiplied by the value of x. Then in the next one we are going to get the deviation from the mean, then the deviation from the mean, we square that one. Then the last column, the frequency multiplied by the deviation from the mean squared. So that is in our last column. So that's the way we can do it there. So remember the class time interval, the first one there, you just need to copy that. Between 0 is less than x and less or equal to 2, 2 is less than x and x is less or equal to 4, and 4 is less than x and less or equal to 6, and 6 is less than x and less or equal to 8, and 8 is less than x and less or equal to 10, and 10 is less than x and less or equal to 12. So you just copy that. Now in the next column that you have there, they want you to find, for these values, find the mid, what is halfway between this class time interval they have given you. So what is halfway between 0 and 2? It is a 1. If you're not so sure, you add the first one, 0 plus 2, the answer you get, you divide by 2. That will give you, the mid values of x there. If you don't know, you can go to this one, 2 plus 4, you get a 6, 6 divided by 2, and that will give you a 3 if you're not so sure. If you want, 4 plus 6 is 10, 10 divided by 2, that's a 5 there. All right, between 6 and 8 there, that is a 7. Between 8 and 10, that is a 9. Between 10 and 12, that is 11. So those are the values of x that we get. So for the frequencies, let me use a blue marker. It is the number of learners. So those are representing the frequency. And they told you there were 80 learners. This experiment or task was taken by 80 learners. So between this class interval, there were just 5. So that would be 5, 15, 25, 20, 10, and a 5. So that is what we are going to have there. So what do we need to do here? This is representing the product. You multiply f times x. 1 times 5 is simply going to give you a 5, and 3 multiplied by 15, that will give you a 45, and that will be 5 multiplied by 25, that will give you 125, and 14 times 20, that will give us 140, 9 times 10 will give you a 90, and 11 times 5 will give you a 55. Remember what I said before you can proceed, because you have the mean there, you need first of all to calculate the mean. Therefore, to calculate the mean, you need to know the summation of fx. You add all that, and if you remember in this column, you need to know the summation of f. Of course, if you add all this, that will give you 80, because they have told you the task in this science experiment was done by 80 learners. So our job is simply to add the product of fx. So that would be 5, plus 45 plus 125 plus 140 plus 90 plus 55. So what will that give us? It is giving me 460. So remember, we need to find the mean. The mean represented by that average x bar is equal to the summation of fx, the product, divided by the sum of the frequency. So what is that? It is 460 divided by the frequency, which is 80. So 460 divided by 80, and that is going to give me a 5.75. So that is the mean that I'm getting, 5.75. So now we can proceed, using this one, because we have now found the mean. So what we do there is that you get the value of x, that is 1 minus, in this case, the mean, which is a 5.75. Okay, so what is the value that I'm getting? I'm simply getting a negative 4.75. So this value, please don't stop. This value you get, that tells you you square it. So raise it to the power 2. So if I raise it to the power 2, it is simply giving me a 22 point. I'll just be leaving them to 2 decimal places, 22.56. Okay, so whatever value that I get, you can still use the value on your calculator there, multiplied by the frequency, which is a 5 there. So that is going to give me, to 2 decimal places, that will give me 112.81. All right, we move on to the next one. The value of x is a 3 minus 5.75. Remember, that is the mean that we have there. The mean is simply 5.75. So this value that I'm getting is giving me a negative 2.75. This value, you square it. So what is that giving me when I square it? It is simply giving me a 7.56 to 2 decimal places. Then this value I get, you multiply by the frequency, which is 15 there. So when you multiply that to 2 decimal places, it is giving me 113.44 there. We move on to the next one there, which is a 5 minus 5.75, which is our mean. So it is giving me a negative 0.75. So this value, you square it, so raise it to the power 2. That is going to give you a 0.56 to 2 decimal places. Then this value I get, the way it is on the calculator, multiplied by the frequency, which is 25. So let me just repeat that again. So that is 5 minus 5.75. We got that is 5 minus 5.75. we got a negative 0.75, and I squared that one. I got that one. Then multiply this value, multiply by the frequency, which is a 25. It is simply giving me a 14.06 to 2 decimal places. We move on to that. 7 minus 5.75. I'm simply getting a 1.25. This, you raise it to the power 2, just square what you have on your calculator. So that is going to give you 1.56. This value that you have on your calculator, multiply by the frequency, which is a 20. So that is going to give me 31.25. I move on to that one. The value of x is a 9. So that is 9 minus 5.75, which is the mean. I'm getting a 3.25. This value, you raise it to a power, you square it, that will give me 10.56. This value that you have, or what you have on your calculator, times the frequency, multiplied by 10, that is going to give me a 105.63. The last one, it will be 11 minus 5.75. The value that I'm getting there is 5.25. This value on your calculator, you square it, it is simply giving me 27.56, and this value multiplied by 5 there. So it is simply giving me a 137.81. So you can see it is very easy. You finish one row, go to the next one. Instead of you stopping here, there, it will be a sheer waste of time in the exam. So what do we need? What we are interested in is the last column. So you need to know the summation of the frequency multiplied by the deviation from the mean squared. We just need to add the last column. Let's add it together and see. So that is 112.81 plus 113.44 plus 14.06 plus 31.25 plus 105.63 plus 137.81. So what is that giving me? It is giving me 515. So this is the value that you're getting. So once you get that now, the value, you can now apply the formula. Remember the formula for that table that we have used, the standard deviation is you get the summation of the frequency multiplied by the deviation from the mean squared divided by the summation of the frequency. So it is what we get. We introduce the square root of that. So the standard deviation will be, what is this value? We got a 515 divided by the summation of the frequency. Do you still remember? It is simply 80. So we are going to say, divide by 80. So whatever value that we get there, you need to find the square root of that. So therefore it will be 515 divided by 80. I'm simply getting a 6.4375. So what is the square root of that? What is the square root of the answer that we have there? So it is simply giving me 2.54. That is my standard deviation. Again, we have corrected this to 3 sig. That's a short abbreviation for significant figures. So that is to 3 significant figures. So it is simply 2.537. Remember, we had 2.537222, but to 3 significant you count 1, 1, 2, 3. So you look at the number that follows after, it is more than 5, so you add a 1 there, and that is why we have a 4 there. So thank you so much for watching. Please, you need to get more questions and actually practice. You can see which method actually works out well. If you didn't watch my first video, you can go back to my first video and look at the first method that I looked at under statistics when finding the standard deviation. Then you can choose whichever you prefer using in the exam. If you like what I do, please, you can hit that like button and subscribe to my channel so that you can actually receive notifications for new videos. You can also watch out my series in physics, chemistry, and also in biology. Thank you so much for watching.